This book is The Dragons of Wainhouse Tower. Once upon a time, there was a little boy called Ted. He lived in a small town called Halifax. He had a mummy, a daddy, and a little black cat called Star. Near his house, there was a very tall building called Wainhouse Tower. Mummy told him it was built a long time ago by a rich man called Mr. Wainhouse. The story goes that he built it to be able to spy on another rich man who he did not like. At night, the tower shone with bright, colourful lights and could be seen from miles around. Ever since Ted could remember, when he was putting on his pyjamas, his mummy would say the dragons who live in Wainhouse Tower are very shy and they need to be sure that every little boy and girl has gone to sleep before they come out. Every night, Teddy and Mummy would go into the front porch to look up at the tower. Ted would whisper "night night" to the dragons while peering hard at the top to see if he could catch a glimpse of one waiting to fly off. Mummy told Ted that the dragons have a very important job to do whilst everyone is asleep. First, they look for happy dreams. These glow pink in the darkness and look like little fluffy clouds. When the dragons see them, they waft with their big wings towards the houses where the children sleep. The dragons also look out for bad dreams moving towards the earth. These look like little black rain clouds and are more difficult to see in the dark. If they spot any, the dragons fly towards them as quickly as they can and breathe fire on them so that they burn up. The ash flutters down and blow away from the children's homes. Mummy said that when the sun starts to rise in the east, the dragons fly back to Wainhouse Tower to go to bed for the day. Who looks after their dreams? Ted asked. Good question, said Mummy. When they drove past the tower to go to school in the mornings, Mummy would tell Ted that the dragons were resting with their hot water bottles underneath soft blankets and that they drink hot chocolate before going to sleep. When dark started to fall in the evenings, Mummy would say that the dragons were getting up and having their breakfast. What do dragons eat for breakfast, Mummy? Asked Ted. They love porridge, said Mummy. Said Ted. Ted liked the idea that the dragons were flying over his house at night to make sure he had good dreams. One night, while Mummy was asleep, he crept downstairs into the garden. He thought that he saw some flames in the sky, but was not sure if it was just his imagination. The next morning, Ted woke early. Mum was still asleep and he was snoring. He was determined to do all he could to meet a dragon. As he crept downstairs, Star was meowing for her breakfast. He fed her and poured himself a glass of milk. Then Ted put on his new blue wellies, which Mummy had bought him for starting school, and fastened up his favourite green coat. Mummy kept the door keys up high on a hook. Ted got the stool, which he always used for reaching things, like the treat bowl on the shelf, and took the keys down. She let himself out into the cool, crisp morning. It was the end of the summer. The birds were singing. Ted looked up into the trees and saw two squirrels playing. Right, thought Ted. I'd better not hang about as Mummy will be awake soon. Ted walked quickly to the top of the road. When he reached the junction by the tower, he stopped, looking both ways and listened out for approaching cars, as Mummy had always told him to do. Then he carefully crossed over to the other side of the road. He carried on walking to the foot of the tower. He stood very still and looked around. All of a sudden, Ted heard a rustling sound in the bushes nearby. He stood very still and was very, very quiet. There it was again. Ted crept closer to the bushes, stood on his tippy toes and looked into the undergrowth. What was that? Two curious eyes were looking at him. Ted had never seen eyes like those before, except in storybooks and in his dreams. It was a dragon! Hello, he said softly. My name is Ted. The dragon continued to stare at him, then started to move a little closer. My name is Raken. I need some help. A big tear appeared in the corner of her eyes and plopped onto the ground, splashing a leaf on the way. Oh, what's the matter? Ted said as he moved a little closer to her. She pulled back the bush she had emerged from to reveal a nest containing 3 large eggs. The nest was made from twigs, moss, and feathers. It was camouflaged in the bushes, but the eggs were blue with pink spots. Raken looked at Ted with a worried expression and said, I've been sitting on these eggs for a whole week and have barely been able to leave them to get food for myself. I am so frightened that they will be stolen. There have been lots of bad dreams in the sky lately, so the other dragons are completely exhausted from chasing them. They are too tired to come and help me. You poor thing, said Ted. You must be feeling so tired and hungry. Don't worry, I will help you. Ted ran home as fast as he could and quietly let himself into the kitchen. The house was dark. Mummy was still asleep. Ted climbed onto a chair and on his tiptoes reached up to the shelf where the picnic basket was kept. Ted climbed onto a chair and he filled the basket with 6 slices of bread, 2 apples, 10 grapes, 2 cooked sausages, 1 slice of milk cheese and 1 bottle of milk. He covered the goodies with a tea towel and quietly let himself back out into the street. As Ted began to walk up to the street, he heard a car engine, so he quickly dived behind a hedge. He peered out and saw his neighbour return home after finishing his night shift. Once the car had passed by, Ted quickly made his way to the tower. He called softly, "Raken, I'm back." He heard a rustling noise and a face appeared in the undergrowth. "I brought you breakfast," said Ted, passing Raken the basket. "Thank you," said Raken, and she gobbled it up hungrily. When Raken was full, Ted told her to go for a rest, while he guarded the eggs. "Okay," said Raken, and off she flew. Ted stayed close to the eggs while Raken flew off for a rest. From the undergrowth, Ted saw another neighbour and her dog walking past. The dog came very close to where he was hiding and had a good sniff about. Ted held his breath and kept very still until they went away again. After a little while, Raken returned. "Thank you so much," she said. "Right," said Ted. "I am going to come back and do this twice a day until these babies have hatched. See you later." With that, Ted turned around and ran as fast as he could back home. He could see his mummy opening the curtains in her bedroom. So as quick as he flashed, he unlocked the back door, kicked off his wellies, shot upstairs and dived under the duvet. Under the covers, he quickly wriggled out of his clothes and kicked them to the bottom of the bed. He shut his eyes tight as he heard his bedroom door open. And so it went on for the next week or so. Evenings were more difficult as Ted had to really sneak about and tell his mummy some quite big fibs. He would say things like, "I'm just going to the kitchen to see Star." While there, he would sneak any food that he could into the basket. Then he would hide the basket under the kitchen counter and wait for a chance to sneak up to the tower. He would say things such as, "I'm going into the garden to look for foxes." "Okay," Mummy would reply. "Don't be long, as tea will be ready soon." And so it went on. One morning, when Ted arrived at the tower and called gently to Raken, there was no reply. He moved a little closer and called again. Raken's head suddenly popped out of the bushes. Her eyes were shining. "They're hatching," she said in a loud whisper. "Oh my goodness," said Ted, and he pushed his way into the undergrowth towards the nest. Ted looked closely at the eggs. One moved, then another, then another. Ted could hear quiet cracking noises, and then a louder one. Jagged lines were appearing on the eggs, and they were, one by one, starting to break open. Ted and Raken looked at each other with wide eyes. The eggs started to shake and the cracking got louder and faster. Ted couldn't take his eyes off them. Suddenly, a little leg popped out of one of the eggs. It was closely followed by another egg. Then the shot at the top of the shell broke away and the baby dragon's head popped out. Ted looked at Raven, who was looking into her baby's eyes with amazement and just a little fear. The little dragon wriggled its bottom and the remainder of the egg fell away. Raken held the baby dragon up in front of her, looked it over, then turned to Ted and said, "It's a girl!" Raken took the baby into her arms and cuddled it closely to her. With the next 5 minutes, the 2 of her eggs had hatched, giving Raken a son and 2 daughters. Ted watched as Raken licked each baby clean before gently putting them back in the nest. Ted helped by taking away all the pieces of eggshell and he gathered some soft bits of moss he found to make the nest extra cozy. "I need to feed them," Raken said. "Okay," said Ted. "I'll watch them. You go find some food." "What do baby dragons eat?" Ted wondered. Ted soon found out when Raken returned with a mouthful of slugs, beetles and butterflies. Ted loved butterflies and liked to pretend to be one sometimes, so he tried not to think too hard about that part of their diet. The dragons opened their mouths just like baby birds and gobbled up their meal hungrily. Raken flew off again to get more food and, after their seconds, the baby dragons seemed more content. They snuggled They snuggled down into the nest and closed their eyes. Raken sat down gently over a little brood and looked at Ted. "Thank you," she said. Raken looked tired. Ted wandered back home slowly, thinking about the wonderful thing he had just been part of. Seeing the birth of those baby dragons had been amazing. He sneaked back into the house, took off his coat and managed to wriggle back under his duvet just as Mum opened the bedroom door and said, "Good morning, sleepyhead." Ted continued to visit, taking food for Raken and watching the babies while she went to find food for them. Ted was surprised at how quickly they grew and gained strength. Their eyes became brighter and wider, their calls became louder, and they began to flap their little wings. One morning, as Ted approached the nest, Raken's eyes met with his, a strange look that seemed to express sadness filled with happiness. "They're flying," she said. "Oh, great," replied Ted, that he was feeling too happy and sad at the same time. He knew in his heart that this would probably be the last time he would be coming to visit Raken and her babies. At the moment, the little dragons started to beat their wings. They beat faster and faster until they became a blur. Suddenly, their little legs began to lift off the ground. One by one, they began to fly up towards the top of the tower. It was a misty October morning, and one by one, they disappeared into the clouds. Raken looked at Ted and hugged him tightly. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "It was my pleasure," said Ted. "Just send me a sign every now and again to let me know you are all okay." "I will," said Raken. With that, she beat her wings and followed her babies into the mist. Ted walked home slowly and a little sadly, but with a warm feeling about the secret part that he had played in the beginning of three little dragons' lives and the joy that he had brought to their mum. Later, when Teddy and Mummy went to the porch to say night-night to the dragons, Ted saw a flash of orange flames near the top of the tower and then three smaller ones. He smiled to himself as he walked up the stairs to bed. The end. Thanks for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe.